Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Todd Barton.
Hey, good morning.
What's up, Todd?
Again, the trippy part of that part, we're talking about the gang life and what you do. Brings it. You asked me about cell violence and stuff like that. We had a guy that Hispanic South Sider. We nicknamed him the mechanic because anytime they had somebody who was no good, they put him in a cell with him and he'd tune them up, meaning he'd damn near kill them. We'd be here, you'd be down in the office and all of a sudden control's telling you, hey man, this dude's kicking his door really hard. We're like, who is it? They tell us the name. We're like, fuck, here we go. You go up there and there's literally blood coming out from underneath the cell door. And again, the respect to how cool this guy was, right? This guy's laid out pretty much. We don't even know if he's dead or alive at this point. He's sitting at the back of the cell. And as said, the rules are they're supposed to cuff both inmates up. Obviously the guy on the ground ain't going to cuff
before you open the door, right?
Before you open the door, correct. Mm-hmm. But the guy in the back, I go, hey man, I need you to cuff up. He goes, man, I can't cuff up, Bartos. If that guy comes up, now I'm the victim because I'm cuffed up. He goes, I got no problem with you. So now I got to make that judgment call because at the end of the day, man, our job is still to save lives, whether we like them or not. We don't get a chance to make that decision. We've got to do our job and save life. So now I've got to endanger myself and my crew, and I've got to make that decision, crack the door. If I'm going to make that decision, I'm going to be the first one in that cell. So now I step over that body to put in between me and him and put him in between me and the people that I'm working with. And, this guy would look back at you and go, hey, Bartos, I told you, I got no problem with you. He just sits there with his hands behind his back. We pull that guy out. We back out. We do what we got to do. Flip side of that was this guy later on. I was also a yard gunner. So at this time when I was working in the hole, I was on the ground a couple days a week and I was also a yard gunner. And back then was when we had the concrete yard. So this guy is out in the yard, very influential. Like I said, called him mechanic. They used and abused him to go after dudes. Also, I see him in a heated argument with the shot caller out there for their group. And to the point where, you're like on alert. You're like, something's about to go really bad here, right? And watching it. Also, I see him throw his hands up in there and goes, get me the fuck off this yard. If you guys aren't going to do nothing now, then fuck you. Crack the door. At that point, at High Desert, what we called the triangle. There was an electric door. So I'm controlling everything from electric door. Control this electric door so we can come into that area, shut that one. And that's where we'd strip them out and clear them, and handcuff them so we could escort them back to their cells. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck just happened? What's going on? He goes, man, fuck these lames, Bartos. I'll talk to you later. I'm done. So I have somebody relieve me, gets me out because he didn't want to talk to anybody else. Go in and I start talking to him. Like, what happened? He goes, man, you know how many hits I've done for these people, right? I go, yeah, dude, fucking at least 8 that I knew of, right? 8 people that this guy whacked for this group. He goes, they told me that one of the last ones was no good. The guy that I whacked, his big homie was somebody up at the bay. They're saying it's a bad hit. Now they're saying I'm in the hat. He's in the hat for doing what he was told to do. Not like he just whacked this guy out of the blue. You know what I mean? And he was like, man, fuck these guys. The flip side of that was, again, you've got a guy who's hardcore. Now he's got to be with these S and Ys. And I remember talking, you'd have to do follow-up interviews. The debrief process is very entailed and very in-depth. He goes, man, I can't do this. I can't sit here in the chow hall with these people. These are people that I put in here. These are people that I don't even like that they're breathing my oxygen. And now he's got to be part of them. I don't know what happened to him. He ended up transferring, but that was one of those guys where you could probably see in him, it wouldn't have surprised me if he would have actually did himself in just because he couldn't be around that environment.
Wow.
And all based on him following orders, him being a soldier, following orders, but it came down and it was no good.
So I'm sure you did a lot of searches and things like that. Have you found a lot of drugs and a lot of weapons?
Yeah. The drugs more so. So I was in investigations unit and the drug, and again, back then, man, they didn't have the cell phone. So you'd have to watch the mail. We'd be listening to their phone calls and dude, you listen to hours and hours and hours of phone calls just to get that one little note that, again, you've got to write it down. You got to try to describe that. This person says, hey, that hamster's in the mail. Who the fuck's going to mail a hamster? So you're using the code hamster H for heroin. try to explain that to a jury. You go to court and you try to tell them, well, most people out in the public, they're going to like, how do you get heroin from hamster? You know what I mean? Like they're still hung up on that part of it. Not even that these guys are using code,
Yeah.
But the biggest thing, the interesting dynamic with finding the dope and stuff was that, so you'd have a guy that would get whacked by his own people out on the yard, for instance. Put them in a cage, taking them, they're on a hospital gurney, whatever, they're getting all, 28 holes getting plugged up, leak. You ask them, hey man, what happened? You no good, you got bad paperwork, you screw up drug debt, gambling debt, what did you do? I got nothing. I'm good. Dude, you're obviously not good. You're leaking blood all over my place. Bad. No, I'm good, man. They'd want to go back. You catch a dude with dope, they give up their mom. They give up everybody. They'd be like, hey man, can I talk to you? And they'd be like, man, this is what's going on. And then the biggest thing was they'd give up who their competition was. That's how we got that's how we found most of our dope, is some guy would give up somebody else that was bringing the shit in to save his ass.
Wow. So he's giving up the competition, everybody.
Oh, dude, and staff. Oh, it's how staff would get involved with these guys blows my mind, because these guys will tell on you. They got no loyalty to you, and again, like I said, people, they want to have some kind of human interaction. Guards, we were kind of like our own gang, but not everybody fit into that gang. There was guards that were lames. There were guards that nobody liked.
And they're outsiders, right? They're outsiders.
Right?
Like, yeah.
So these guys all of a sudden, and again, like the very beginning of this, I said, these guys watch you to prey on you. They watch every one of your mannerisms. And if they think they can get over on you, they're going to fucking use you. And all of a sudden, hey man, you're cool. You're this, man. I bet you're getting this. I bet you're getting that. They just start talking, just start slowly. That manipulation just starts working. And all of a sudden this guy goes, man, these guys think I'm cool. These guys, Bartos thinks I'm a piece of shit. I don't want to hang out with him. He's a punk anyways. But man, this guy fucking little Johnny here is fucking hella cool. He's making me feel like I'm one of the fellas. I'm down for the cause. Now he's bringing in dope. Now he's bringing in cell phones.
Got him.
Got him.
Yeah, got him. Remedy does one thing for him. Got him.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap at that point, And, we got paid very, very well. Like, if you look at other prisons throughout the country, excuse me, most of them, man, they're like rent-a-cops. They're barely making any money. We got paid very well. At the end of my career, base pay was almost $100,000 for a guy with a
very dangerous job too, though.
It is a dangerous job. Yeah, I mean, I get that. We can say that, okay? But at the end of the day, you're getting paid a lot of money for very little experience. I went through a 6-week academy. Now it's a little bit long, 4 months. What other jobs pay that kind of money? You know what I mean? For low experience, and you don't have to have college, or any of that kind of stuff. So part of the reason they paid us, the dangers, the things you give up with your life. Prison's open 365, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Somebody's got to work. You miss birthday parties, you miss anniversaries, you get called in, get held over. There are trade-offs. It's not all great. And you're dealing with, not exactly the greatest people on earth, let's face it. But the biggest thing that I think the reason they tried to pay us so well was to keep us honest. People still fall for. And again, most of them, I don't even think it was necessarily the money. I think it was that acceptance. I'm part of the fellas. I'm part of the crew now. They like me. Like women. You have women that would come in that out on the streets, nobody would give them a second look. They're not even attractive. You put the ugliest woman next to me, she looks pretty fucking good, right? I'm not a good
for people that have been locked up for 20 years, they're like, damn.
Add that to it. So now all of a sudden this woman's getting more attention than she's ever gotten in her life. Or even the ones, like I said, watching your mannerisms. That girl's in a shit relationship. She gets her hair done. She gets her nails done. Husband doesn't pay attention to it, doesn't care anymore. But this guy goes, wow, I really like your new hairstyle. She smiles. Man, my husband doesn't even notice. Man, I'd notice everything, man. They tell him all that stuff. And next thing you know, they're on the hook.
And have you seen them getting walked out of there in handcuffs?
Oh yeah, dude. The walk of shame. The walk of shame with that. We had, and again, man, the craziness with the politics with that. We had a couple free staff. One was a free staff supervisor. The other one was, she worked for her. They both started playing, and they were with the Northerners. And all of a sudden one day they come in and the Northerners tell them, you don't belong to us anymore. We sold you to the blacks. And now they're getting tricked out by the blacks.
And they had no choice in the matter.
Had no choice. They had no choice. Because they were in that deep. They were bringing in shit. They'd already been fucking them. They're doing that. How do you get away from it? And not all of, and again, like I said, some of these women are mentioned before, so they get that. I've seen some very attractive. There was one gal, freaking gorgeous. This girl could have had any man she wanted on the streets, let alone in prison or anything like that. She was working in the admin building. Our level ones would come. At that time, we had a kitchen. They called it the PK. It was for staff, but it was staffed by level 1 inmates that would do the cooking and stuff like that. The guy that was working the register, she fell in love with him. He fell in love with her, to the point that he was paroling. She was married. She was married to a sergeant at the prison. Okay. Good looking chick, had a family. She tells him one day, she goes, yeah, I'm done with this. I'm moving down to Bakersfield. And the guy says, dude, I can't just transfer. She goes, well, you either come with me or I'm leaving you behind. She leaves her husband, goes down there. She got to transfer to another prison down there in Bakersfield area. And how they caught this was, homeboy paroled. He's driving to pick up his girlfriend from prison. At the gatehouse, the guy sees he's all blasted back with prison tats and goes, dude, are you on parole? He goes, yeah, I'm on parole. What the fuck are you doing here at the prison? I'm picking up my girlfriend. That's how this guy found out that his wife left him for an ex-con.
Wow. So the prisoner went to the prison to pick up the girlfriend.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
You couldn't make this shit up if you wanted to.
That's insane.
Right.
So they violate him, right?
For what?
For messing with staff. Doesn't he get in trouble?
He's on parole. He's on parole. You can't prove it. Good luck. But she lost her job. She lost her job, you know, and all that. And, you know, the humility of, you know, hey, man, my wife left me for a freaking inmate, you know, a guy that made 8 cents an hour. But, you know.
Now he's part of the offie group. Everyone's making fun of him and shit.
Nah, you know, I mean, dude, you got to feel bad for somebody like that. But could you imagine if one of the homeboys hears about it and all of a sudden you're walking that line, some guy goes, man, you ain't all that. If you were all that, my homeboy would have been fucking your old lady. How do you
They all know. They all had to know. I mean,
absolutely. How do you think that's going to play out? If you're a man, you're going to snap. Even if you're not, even if you're not, man, how do you contain that?
I've seen guards mess with people so bad. I've seen one time this guard tells this guy, he calls him up and he's like, your son was killed in an accident. And he was lying to him. The guy starts screaming, punching the wall. And he's like, I'm just joking.
That's fucked up. I've never seen that. Thankfully. Like you asked me before, do we have guys that thought they were tougher than they really were and pushed people? Oh, 100%. You know, I've never seen any kind of mental stuff like that. That's sick. That's a twisted person to do that. And that sucks. But again, man, there's all sorts of different people out there. You know, just because somebody's a nurse, just because somebody's military, just because somebody's a cop or in law enforcement doesn't necessarily make them a good person. We kind of give these people a false thing of, oh, they're all great. You know, like I said, there are a lot of freaking cops that I didn't care for, that I had zero respect for. There was convicts that I had a lot of respect for how they carry themselves and how they acted. You got to judge people on how they are as a person, not who they are. And that was one of the things with me. I never identified myself as a cop. My biggest trip was because, you know, that Susanville area is a very small community. It's basically a cop land. Okay, everybody, there's 3 prisons up there. You got a federal prison. At that time, you had 2 state prisons up there in a very small community. So everybody knew guards. And people, you know, out in the community, I'd be coaching, doing other things. And people go, hey, man, what do you do for a living? I go, I work at the prison. They go, what do you do out there? I'm like, I'm a guard. Like, you don't act like a guard. Because that wasn't that wasn't ever my identity. It was a job. It was something I did. It was a means to an end. I wasn't the guy that got picked on. Nobody took my lunch money when I was growing up in school. I didn't have a badge to all of a sudden get back at all those who wronged me. It was just a job to me. I enjoyed it. And again, man, I've made great friends. There's people that I consider family now that I've been with. there's convicts that, man, I had enough respect with, that these guys got out. Social media made the world a very small place. And I've had guys that have reached out since they've paroled to let me know, hey man, I appreciate how you treated me, appreciate how you acted, and I just want you to know I'm doing good. Chris Curtis being one of them. I know you've talked to him. You know, the guy's out there written a book, Orange County, The Dark Side. The guy's working with troubled youth. He's got plans to try to, so because he's an electrician. In our schools now, they don't really have the ROP programs or programs that teach kids trades anymore. He wants to try to bring that back and set up like an electrician apprentice program, so these kids have something to look forward to and work towards. That's cool. And not to try to make this about me in that regard, but it makes me feel good that there's people that you had a certain belief in, or you knew that they would be all right, and when they prove you right, it makes you feel good that, okay, my judgment, my compass is on a pretty good direction with somebody like that. Because as a guard, what sucked, we'd parole people every day that you knew it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when they were going to come back. And for that when to come back, how many victims did they leave behind when they finally got caught? What was the wake, you know? And we had to let them go. And it was hard. It was very hard to know that, man, I'm putting a wolf in the hen house, not a fox, a fucking wolf, you know? And then you've got a guy like Chris Curtis, who was facing life without the possibility of parole. And you know, he would be a great part of society, a benefit to society. And that guy doesn't get to go because of circumstances. Why I'm having to let this guy go. That's hard to watch. That's harder to do.
A lot of people, they won't get a chance when they would be good members of society, but that opportunity is shut down.
Right. And it sucks. And again, you know, these guys, I do, there's a difference between sympathy and empathy. Okay. And again, these guys all did something to get where they're at. There's somebody that they hurt some way or another to get there. I get that. And a lot of those guys, the ones that have some kind of pride, will own that. Say, hey man, I fucked up. I hurt somebody to be where I'm at. I have to pay a price. I respect the hell out of that. You know what I mean? But you've got guys that don't take that responsibility, or that don't care. And when they're, like you said, it's hard watching those guys that some have opportunities, some have don't. It depends on what the judge is doing at that time. You know, there was another kid that I knew. He was a good kid, 17 years old, came from a great family. He was my porter. And I'd always want to find out what they did. Why are you, if you're going to be around me, if you're going to be working with me, I want to know
what's a porter for the people that don't know.
Okay. So the porter is the guy that works in your building that does the cleaning. He would do a lot of our, you know, miscellaneous little paperwork type stuff. He was kind of like your assistant, so to speak, you know?
Yeah.
And I didn't want any kind of lame. I didn't want dirtbags around me. I mean, I've got my prejudices and politics and my personal feelings. I'm not going to lie about it, you know? So there's certain individuals, certain types of people I didn't want around me. So, you know, you go, hey man, what's your story? Kid was 17 years old, working construction, came from a good life. One day, beer 30 on a Friday. They let him have one too many. On his way home, he T-bones a car, runs a stop sign, and ends up killing somebody.